Hello, and welcome to Webisode 11 of our Toolbox series. Today we are continuing on our series on emotion regulation with ABC Please. So this webisode series is being put on by Youth Eastside Services. We are a behavioral health service provider for children and youth on the East Side in King County. We provide youth and family mental health counseling, as well as substance use and co-occurring disorder counseling. And then as well, Delaney and I are from the Community Education and Prevention programs at YES. You are welcome to reach out to us. So right now, just so you know, we are not able to take new clients, but our website is going to be the best place to find out when we are taking new clients again. And as well, our phone number is up on this slide. You are also welcome to follow us on social media. You are welcome to reach out to someone else if you would like to talk to someone immediately, and this is some sort of crisis that maybe doesn't escalate quite to 911, but you are always welcome to reach out to the King County Crisis Line or the Crisis X Line. Those are both 24/7 resources, and as well, Teen Link is a great resource. They are peer-to-peer for teens, so if you have anyone who's younger, who's listening to us today, then that might be a really great resource for them. My name is Kaylin Griffiths. I'm a behavioral health support specialist and licensed mental health counselor associate and substance use disorder professional.
And my name is Delaney Not-Nearest. I'm the school-based behavioral health coordinator. I'm a social worker by training and a drug and alcohol counselor as well. Also, just apologies. We normally have our videos on so you can see us, but I am having connectivity issues. So we're having our videos off today.
We are taking all of our materials for this webinar series based on the DBT Skills in Schools textbook, as well as the DBT Skills Training Manual. Delaney and I are both foundationally trained in dialectical behavior therapy, and that is where we got everything that goes into these slideshows. So if you're interested in learning more, these are the resources to check out.
Awesome. So for our agenda today, we're going to start out with mindfulness as we normally do, just to get some practice in, as well as give you more tools to use throughout your day. We will cover a little bit of where we're at in emotion regulation to kind of ground us in the toolbox series itself. The 2 skills we will use today, which actually are more like 9 skills, because each letter is a different skill, is ABC Please, and then we will give you some at-home practice like we normally do, as well as a Q&A if we have anybody join us live, which we don't currently. And this is week 11 out of our 16-week series. So just to kind of cover what we've already done thus far, we've done mindfulness and distress tolerance. So these are the skills you guys already have in your toolbox. If you missed any of it, feel free to go back and check out our other videos. But we're adding ABC and then Please to our emotional regulation toolbox. Awesome. So we are going to do a mindfulness practice today. I'm going to lead you through a script. If you are joining us watching this video, I would love it if you could take a moment to pause this video and go get a glass of water. As part of one of our skills we are learning today, it is kind of taking care of our bodies, and that includes hydration. And so a lot of people don't think about this, and they can use it as a mindfulness practice, which is what I'm going to be leading you through today. It's going to be pretty short, but it can be something that you think about throughout your day and just to kind of keep tabs on. So before you kind of get started with this, the idea again is mindful hydration. It provides benefits of kind of meditation, mindfulness, as well as obviously drinking water, which is important. It only takes about 90 seconds to do this activity. So keeping that in mind, that it's just a small slice of your day. Before you start this, it's always important to check in with yourself. You can kind of see what your stress level might be. If you could give it a rating, some people like to use that thermometer that we've shown you before. Other people I've known like to use kind of a color to describe how their stress level is, but just checking in with yourself and kind of figuring out what is your stress level and kind of giving that a rating. And then another thing to check in with yourself is what is your hydration level right now? Have you had anything to drink today? If so, what was it? When was the last time that you drank something? And to think about what was it that you drank, because ultimately water is what we should be drinking, but a lot of us don't think about that. We are drinking coffee, soda, tea, smoothies, juice, whatever it might be, but water is actually what we need and what our bodies need the most of. So how much water have you drank today? Or maybe if you didn't drink any water today, did you drink any water yesterday? And thinking about that and just checking in on your own hydration levels and where might you want to be at so that you can work towards that. So this process involves 3 different steps. So first, find a peaceful place without any distractions. Hopefully you're in that space now while you're watching this video with us. Take that vessel that you have filled with water, whatever it may be, water bottle, glass, mug, and sit in a comfortable position. Once you're comfortably seated, take 3 deep breaths and slowly exhale after each breath. We've learned the skill of paced breathing, and the idea of that is to have the inhales be a little bit shorter than the exhales. So the exhales should be longer than the inhales. So taking 3 deep breaths, and place your hand on your water vessel on your 3rd breath. After your 3rd breath, be mindful of the water that you hold and appreciate how calm and peaceful that it is. During this moment, free your mind of any thoughts and allow yourself to recognize the now of the moment. It's okay if you find it hard to refocus and clear your mind of any thought. That's normal. But just taking a moment, holding the water, looking at the water, appreciating the water before we do the final piece, which is to practice mindful hydration, take a sip or a mouthful of that water and let it flow down your throat slowly. After you've taken that sip, next take a deep breath in and out between each mouthful and exhale. Recognize the water and appreciate how peaceful this now moment is. Should you become distracted, that's normal. Simply shift your focus back to the water and nothing more. You don't have to finish your whole glass of water or whatever it is that you're drinking in this moment, but just take a few more deep breaths and a few more sips of water. Just thinking about how the water is going to be good for you, for your body, and how it's going to hydrate you, and being in this moment. And when you're ready, just take that one final deep breath and join us back for the rest of our skills today. Kaylin, what did you think about that? Mindfully drinking water, as I'm going to take a drink of mine.
I really liked it. I hate drinking water. Well, hate is a strong word for this thing. That's a rather judgmental word for this thing, but like, there are so many more interesting things that you can drink in our lives. Like even just like sparkling water or like juice, or soda, you know, like there are things that like, or a smoothie. I really wanted a smoothie for like a long time, like yesterday and the day before. But like you don't often really think about the benefits of water like as you're drinking them. And I really liked the pairing of like appreciating the water, appreciating the way that it like impacts your body. Because I think that's something that's missing a lot of the time. And I actually really enjoyed this couple of sips.
Awesome. Yeah. I recently figured out how much water I should be drinking in a day. And I'm definitely not drinking that much water. So
it's significantly higher than I thought too. Last time I looked it up, I'm afraid.
Yeah. So I think it's great that you can kind of partner it and taking a couple of moments for mindfulness and also do something that is really good for your body, which I think just aligns really well with the please skill today.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we are continuing on with emotion regulation today with our ABC please, what that means is the goal of emotion regulation that we're focusing on this week is to decrease our emotional vulnerability. So again, if we are thinking about our DBT model of emotions, we're looking at our step 2, which is our vulnerability factors. Really, it has nothing to do with in the moment regulation or in the moment what's going on with these emotions. Really, what we're examining with this one is everything that we come into with that. So what are the things going on for us that will impact what kinds of emotions we have later? So how does addressing vulnerability factors help with regulating big emotions? all people are prone to emotional reactivity when they're under physical or emotional stress, or environmental stress. By learning to increase positive feelings and emotions like pride, joy, and self-confidence, we can become less vulnerable to more negative emotions. I mean, ultimately, what this goes to say is that depending on whatever's going around us, we're going to react differently to the thing. Like if we are having like a big interview today, we're probably going to be more stressed throughout our day. We might have like more potential to like get road rage or get stressed out at a long line or being late than we would if we didn't have a big job interview. So those big things that are going on around us or even peripherally, like if one of our family members or someone that we live with is having a really rough time, that will impact us and that will add to our stress, even if it's not something that we have taken on as a task that we need to complete. So thinking about these other things that are going on around us is really, really helpful. And it's really helpful to examine these quote unquote like positive emotions like pride, joy, and self-confidence, the same way we look at how anger and sadness and loneliness come out. Because if we can figure out what's going on with those things and what things we want to happen less so we experience those emotions less, and similarly, we should also be paying attention to the things we want to happen more, paying attention to what kind of sparks those good things so we can have those things more too. So the first in our set of 9 skills for today is just accumulating positive experiences. And we've got here just like a lovely image of a bunch of balloons slowly floating up into the sky. Because sometimes positive experiences is something that simple. It's saying something cool, something interesting, something that you like. So in the short term, accumulating positive experiences really refers to doing pleasant things that are possible right now, letting yourself enjoy the little things, focusing your attention on those positive events as they're happening, refocusing your mind when your attention when it turns to the negatives, and not destroying positive experiences by thinking about when they'll end, and not listening to judgments that you might have that you don't deserve the positive event. Those are the things that you can do either while you're already experiencing something really positive or pleasant, or when you need to convince yourself, hey, I can do something pleasant right now. I have this amount of downtime. Let's do something really helpful with that or something I'm really going to enjoy. And making sure that you understand the utility of doing that is a really big part of the skill. And then again, in the long term, making changes in your life so positive events can occur more often. Again, looking at like what kinds of things go along with those positive emotions so we can make them happen more. Working towards a life worth living goal, which in DBT is this big overarching goal that all clinicians will hope that their clients come up with, which is this idea of like, what is the one thing that if you can accomplish this right now, that will make your life worth living for you. For some people, it's like going off and becoming like a star or this big important person in their field of choice. For some people, it's really just like, hey, you know, I want to visit every single national park, or I want to travel to every continent. It can be whatever you want, but it's that thing that you're like, hey, you know, this is worth continuing on every day. This is worth the everyday stressors if I get to accomplish this big thing. In the long term, again, identifying a goal, whether it's a life worth living goal or any other kinds of goals, really, because we have a whole bunch of goals that really are that overarching big one or ones that are smaller steps. But every goal has small steps that you can accomplish on the way to that goal. And you can always take some of those small steps and break them smaller, which means you could always take the first one or the first couple. And as well, in the long term, repairing old and creating new relationships are going to be helpful for giving yourself the opportunity to have more positive experiences in the future. So just like how we want to pay attention to what kinds of events and situations cue negative feelings, we should also be paying attention to what kinds of events and activities lead to positive feelings. And just to give you guys a little bit of a brainstorm, this is a whole bunch of different ideas for pleasant activities. Obviously, this is not exhaustive, and I am sure that all of you can come up with some ideas that are not already on this list. In fact, one right off the top of my head that I do not believe is on this list because I wrote this list is playing with my cat. Like I play with my cat every single day, and so I know that I get some sort of pleasant activity time every single day. But some of these things are super small, like looking at memes. You can spend literally 5 minutes or less doing that. Just pull up one of the apps on your phone. There are many different portals to the memes. Family time, going to a party, working out, those can be things that take a little bit more time or you do a little bit more regularly, fit into your day. So pleasant activities really range from anything that's like, this is the thing that fits into other things, all the way to this is the thing I want to make time for, and this is the thing I'm going to fit other things around instead. And if we're thinking about the pleasant activities that we want to engage in, we want to choose ones that are going to be meaningful for us. So it's not just like, hey, blowing bubbles or like releasing balloons into the park or just going for a swim. Like, while those things are absolutely enjoyable, we also want to make space for those activities that are going to create meaning for us. So activities that will help us achieve something, something that will help us have fun and de-stress, something that lets us focus with our time on family, or emphasize that or give quality time. That's a big love language. So making sure you're getting that quality time with your family could be really helpful for your values. If you're contributing something, I know a lot of folks really enjoy volunteering and giving back as a pleasant activity. Something that makes you feel like you're part of a group, gives you a sense of community, something that builds character, makes you feel like you're interesting or builds more skills, something that helps you be responsible, something that helps you become a leader or learn those skills, something that helps with your health. So again, like working out, eating regularly, meal prep, things like that. Learning new things like I've been talking about for a while. Like I think it'd be really cool if I could learn Spanish or if I could learn how to play D&D, things like that. And striving for moderation too. So knowing like, hey, I could order a whole cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory and eat it tonight, but will that really make me feel great? Not so much, right? So using things in moderation, knowing how much of a thing you actually need to get the effect that you want, and not pushing that overboard because there is too much of a good thing. And two, if I order cheesecake every single night, I will probably get sick of it at some point. So if I want to keep cheesecake something that I love and something that I go to when I'm like stressed out and need something to pick me up, cheesecake will still be there because I use it in moderation. But your values are going to inform your activities to a certain extent. Sure, you can kind of go outside those with the littler things, but for the ones that really mean something and have an impact on your life, or when you're really trying to brainstorm things that you want to add or work into your life, look at your values, look at the things that you think would be helpful to grow in. And that's really going to help with like what you're going to find pleasant or worth it at the end of the day.
Just chuckling at the cheesecake will always be there for
I
you.
love cheesecake. It's so
Oh,
good.
cheesecake too. It's so good. It's one of my faves. All
Yeah.
right. So the B in the ABC is building mastery. And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. We're not saying that, hey, you need to go learn how to create a wind turbine like this image here. But it can be figuring out what is it that will help you and what is it that you want to know how to do, build mastery and skills. It's an important one. So building mastery is important to do things that build an internal sense of confidence, control, and competence. So we want you thinking about kind of ABC, please. I had someone describe it to me as kind of money in the bank, right? So you're trying to put in good things, making deposits for yourself so that when you are having a hard time, you can make the withdrawals to sort of have that built up of a rainy day fund, right? Emotionally, basically. So, and along with accumulating positive experiences, building mastery is along the same lines because you're experiencing your own confidence, control, and competence. And that will help you feel prepared for difficult emotional situations and help decrease the likelihood of experiencing those negative emotions because you have sort of a stronger sense of what you know how to do, what you can do, and that helps you move forward in whatever situation you're in. So there's two types of mastery activities. One are activities that you might not enjoy while you're doing them, but however, once they're accomplished, you might feel better. So examples we have on this list: cleaning your room, folding the laundry, although I personally really enjoy folding laundry, but I know that's not for everyone. Writing a paper, going to a practice if you need to, going to the gym, organizing a school activity, cooking a meal. I think in general, homework is always one that people don't necessarily like doing in the moment, but after they've done it, checking that off the list, it just makes you feel better. It's one of the things I talk to a lot of the students that I work with is, make a list and then slowly go through it, break it down into small chunks. Because once you've done pieces, it feels way less overwhelming. So this is the first type of mastery.
I also think it's just a fun reframe to think of your homework as I'm building mastery right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are like me in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are, right? You're like learning new things. That's the point of
Yeah.
homework, is to practice the skills that you have learned in school to be able to have mastery when you take the test. So the other type of mastery is activities that leave you feeling effective and in control and building your own confidence. So examples for this one are like practicing an instrument, lifting weights, finishing a big project, cooking a meal, organizing your closet, going to therapy, playing a video game. These are the type of things that once you do it, you're like, yeah, I got this. I'm doing this thing. And it helps you feel better about whatever it is you're trying to do, the goals you're trying to reach. Like all of those things, you can kind of tie it to something that's important to you, right? Like, I want to learn how to play the guitar, or I want to have really swole biceps, or I want to, learn all these skills. So I go to therapy, whatever it might be. I want to get this high score in this game. So what are things that you can do that will help you feel like you know what you're doing? That's kind of the whole purpose of this one, is help you feel like you know what you're doing and you can do something and you are in control of what's going on.
I want swole biceps. I'm just kidding.
Small biceps. So mastery doesn't have to be a large event or reaching a huge goal. One of the things I think we talk about a lot in therapy is our successes sometimes are very small, right? It's like sometimes just even showing up to therapy is in a way building mastery. Like you're going to do the thing. So mastery doesn't have to be even school or work related, as long as you feel a sense of putting something, as long as you feel a sense of confidence, control, you know what you're kind of doing. That's what building mastery is. So you can feel that mastery in putting together a great outfit, doing your makeup, solving a puzzle, getting to the next level in a game. It can be something small, and these things can be difficult, which is probably why they also will give you a sense of accomplishment. I mean, there can be a handful of things that might be easy that you're like, yeah, I did that thing. Or the things that you're always trying to avoid, like I need to call this person and make this appointment. It can be small things like that that help you build mastery. It doesn't have to be something huge.
All right, so the last of our first set, our ABC, is coping ahead. And really what this kind of refers to, it's pretty self-explanatory, but coping ahead is coping ahead of time for an upcoming situation that you feel is likely to cue or prompt unpleasant emotions. And I think the key here is that it's likely to cue or prompt unpleasant emotions. Like we don't really necessarily know. Coping ahead is not at all about predicting the future. So it's not necessarily about being like, this is the day that I'm like, I'm looking forward to something. I know it's going to make me pissed off. I'm going to do it in that case. That's totally fine. If you want to cope ahead of something that you know is going to negatively affect you, that's totally skillful. And I think it's also really helpful to use this skill if you're thinking about not being sure whether or not you'll have a good outcome or a bad outcome. So something like, I brought this up earlier, but if you have a job interview and you're waiting to hear back, you might hear positively, you might hear negatively. Sometimes we don't know. And I should have thrown this up here because now I'm thinking about it, but there is an episode of The Office, for anyone who might be listening who's a fan of that show, where Michael is trying to decide whether or not he'll heal back from like this woman that he has a crush on, about whether or not she wants to be with him. So he makes his assistant kind of put together two boxes. One is a happy box and one is a sad box. And they have very different items on them, depending on if he thinks, oh, I'll be in a celebratory mood, or I'll be in this mood where I kind of want to just like sit and cry. Um, so thinking about like if you have something that you're not sure about or something that you know is going to possibly bring about some strong emotions, planning in advance and being like, okay, this is what I can do. These are the skills that I'm thinking about that might be helpful in this moment. These are the ways that I can deal with these emotions if they do come up, and here's how I can plan next steps. Because as we've been talking about, things are a lot easier to plan for and logically know and work with our reason mind before we are put into emotion mind. So setting out these steps and things so you have a plan already in place is kind of like practicing a fire drill before the fire actually happens. So, for example, athletes practice for a game or an event just the same way you want to practice for a stressful situation. And if athletes are unable to get onto the practice physically, they practice in their heads with mental or image rehearsing. That way they can just kind of visualize the things in their mind. Maybe if you're playing football, you think about the plays that your coach is teaching you. You rehearse like what the language is to use. I am revealing how little I know about sports ball with this. But it's even been found in some cases that athletes who practice in their heads by using imagery are performing just as well as those athletes who got out and physically practiced. Again, I'm not super sure on the science behind that. And I think maybe there's some limits on that. Like, I'm sure you can't go for months without physically practicing. But ultimately, imagining activity and imagining the process and the skills you need to use for the activity affects many of the same brain regions as actually doing the thing. So the key is not only to practice a situation going well again, but more important to imagine the situation not going well and rehearsing how you will skillfully respond to it, like preparing for a best case and worst case scenario, so you're kind of ready for anything. So some examples of events to cope ahead for is like a big test and an important presentation. One example that hits close to home for me because I made this list is licensure exams, which can apply to many different fields. So thinking about you've already been practicing for a while, maybe you're out of touch with studying a little bit and you have to kind of bring all that knowledge back. That can be really nerve-wracking. A job interview, a first or last day of school, the first day of a new job, going to the airport. I don't know about you, but like this is one that kind of just makes me a little bit haywire. Like my parents always taught me to get there like 3 hours early, and then already it's like this big commotion. I still get to the airport 3 hours early. I don't know why. Maybe that's just one of my anxious things. Or going to a new party where there'll be a lot of people you don't already know. I'm sure there are many other kinds of events that can come to mind as well for these. Yes, I think this is the next section, but this one is going to introduce our please skills.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I was prepared for the ABC please down the side again, but yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so kind of one of the reasons why we picked again the water mindfulness practice is taking care of your body can help take care of your mind. I think no one is shocked when they hear us say that our minds and our bodies are actually really closely linked and connected. And when one of them is feeling well, the other one is feeling well. When one of them is feeling poorly, most likely the other part will be feeling poorly too. So if you think you might have been exposed to say the cold virus, you might want to take supplements like vitamin C or zinc, like that's something that could help. So this is how we use these sort of please skills, is sort of taking care of your body, making you less vulnerable to negative emotions. So when our body is feeling sound, we are feeling well, we are feeling healthy, it is much easier for us to sort of weather the storm when it comes to our emotions. So yeah. So the P in please, and again, DBT is great with acronyms, but sometimes they get a little funkadelic. Please is definitely one of those that feels a little funkadelic for me. They're like they're reaching
Someone tried a little too hard to fit it into this word.
A little too, yeah. So the P in please is treat physical, and then the L is illness. Because I guess there's two L's in illness. Not really sure.
I've also seen the L being the last L in physical.
Oh.
So it's just confusing all across the board. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. But basically what the PL of please is treating physical illness. What that means is when you get injured, to take care of it. You know, if you have like we have a picture of someone icing their knee, actually doing the things you need to do. You know, if you are sick, taking sick time is a big one. So making sure you're actually taking care of yourself, seeing your doctor in whatever way, shape, or form that works for you, but making sure that you are checking in with your providers around your medical like well-being, and also taking your medication if you are prescribed medication or taking vitamins like in that previous slide, and making sure that you're doing that regularly and following the instructions and guidelines of a medical provider. Kaylin and I are not medical providers, so we cannot provide you any advice in any of these areas, but most people do understand what that sort of means, and what we would recommend in that sense. And if you don't have a doctor, it probably is a good idea to at least be connected to somebody, or at least know what you would do if you did need to be connected to a doctor. What options are there for you out in the community, say if you are insured or uninsured, and all those various scenarios. It is important to at least have that plan in your back pocket.
All right, so the E in please stands for balance eating. So making sure to pay attention to when your body's full. I mean, I am, again, bringing up cheesecake, but I am totally guilty of like noticing, hey, I'm feeling pretty full. I'm still going to finish this slice of cheesecake. And then, hey, guess what? I don't feel so good afterwards. And yet I do it every time, right? So there are certain times like where there's situations where you might eat past the point where you're super full, and that is not crazy bad for you. And if you're doing it consistently, obviously that's going to have a much bigger impact on your body. And, if you're sitting there feeling super, super full, you're in your Thanksgiving pants, whatever. Are you feeling super hot? How is that going to impact our model of emotions? As well, eat when you're hungry. I know it's really, really, really tempting for whatever reason. There are a lot of social media impacts, just a lot of social impacts in general around eating. But making sure to eat when you're hungry, making sure to pack snacks for your day. If you notice that you tend to get hungry at the office, making sure to find ways to get that food in there for when you need it. So you're not getting hangry, or you're not getting grumpy or snapping at people, or just feeling like like a potato chip just deflated in your chair. Um, I threw up the image of Kelly Kapoor on here again from The Office, bringing up a lot of things again and again this time. But this is when she was on her juice cleanse and she's trying to convince people she feels amazing. And the last picture that I threw up here is notice how what you eat impacts your emotions, or if you're eating based on your emotions. So I threw up the image of Will Ferrell from Elf because he is eating his candy spaghetti. And I wonder where that recipe came from, just a little bit. Just another couple of quick tips on food, but food in your mood. You can observe how certain foods affect your mood, both negatively and positively. So, for example, I notice if I have fast food, I feel a little bit like just sitting on the couch for a little while after that. I feel physically like heavier. I feel sluggish. I don't feel very energetic. Whereas I notice if I have a little bit more fruits and veggies, I balance my foods a little bit more, don't have too many carbohydrates, but have like actual food that's supposed to like break down a little bit easier in my body and give me energy, I am a little bit more of an active potato instead of a couch potato. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it does make a difference. You can also notice whether you're eating too much or too little just by kind of like thinking over the last couple of days, what have my eating habits been like? I mean, I've definitely fallen into some habits where, like, especially on early mornings and when you're first returning to school, I would skip breakfast a lot because I would just rather spend that extra 5 minutes sleeping. And I noticed a big impact I was having on my mood, and I noticed I was getting hangry later in the day. And I was like, hey, maybe this has something to do with me not eating enough. It's also helpful to like start thinking about changes that you want to make, and using those ideas, start small, because dramatic changes to the way that you eat are really, really, really hard to maintain. And so those small changes are going to be a lot easier. Like find one thing you want to change and change that, and then change another thing, and then change another thing, but giving it a lot of time. So you're not trying to change everything at once. And a lot of the time when you try and do that and it doesn't work, you become really judgmental of yourself for it not working. And really, you weren't really setting yourself up to win there. And then as well, just kind of mindfully noticing the effects of eating well on your mood, especially after you make changes, kind of sitting there and reflecting with yourself, like at the end of your day, how did I feel today? What did I eat today? How was that relevant to how I was feeling?
Awesome. So the A, I
Orange
think
is
it's
not
the
a good
A.
choice. I apologize.
No, it's okay. So the A is avoid mood altering substances. So what that means is actually kind of a handful of things. A lot of people think when we say mood altering substances, they think about alcohol, marijuana, a bunch of different things kind of come to mind. But one of the actually top mood altering substances is caffeine. So thinking about coffee, energy drinks, if there's anything that you drink during the day that might impact that. Sugar can also be considered a mood altering substance, but just being mindful and aware of what is it that you're putting in your body. Now, all these things that Kaylin and I are talking about, we're not saying you have to do these huge changes or shifts. We're not saying give up this, give up that. Also, just being mindful, different people have different lifestyles and different cultures. Different foods might impact them differently. Different things might be a part of something that, is not part of my life, but it might be a part of yours. So just acknowledging that. And the whole point of this is being intentional and aware of what is it that you're doing. So does having caffeine or coffee or alcohol or whatever it might be, does it change how you feel? And if so, does it change the way that you want to feel? Is it making things better or worse for whatever it is you're trying to do or accomplish? Does it change your perception of things? Again, that might be a little bit more on the substance use side versus like coffee or, sugar. But if you are choosing to use a substance, how does it change your perception? And is it changing it in ways that are helpful for you or to help you, again, build your life worth living goals? If it does, great. If it doesn't, thinking about that and figuring out, okay, is this the way that I want to be in the world? And the final question is, thinking about, does it change the way that you respond in a situation? Again, is it something that you want to have, like if you say vape and you need to go vape on your break and you haven't been able to do that, that might impact how you work with, say, customers. If you work at like QFC and you haven't gotten on your break yet and you're a cashier and you really want that nicotine, and that nicotine is going to then potentially make you grumpy because you don't have it. Your body's going to respond in that way. And is that the way that you want to respond in your work or school or whatever it might be? Basically, just being mindful of what is it you're putting inside your body and is it doing the things that you want it to do or not?
Up next, we've got balanced sleep for S. So how do you prepare for sleep? Do you have a routine? Is that something that's helpful for you? I find a lot of folks who struggle with sleep sometimes don't have a great routine or a way to kind of prepare for that. And sometimes, at least for me, I found that having a routine really prepares my body for like, hey, just so you know, you're about to go into this room and go to sleep. That's what you're prepared for. And that's kind of how my body like winds down at the end of the night. Like it's a very structured thing. I do the same steps in the same order every single night. And my body really gets that heavy cue that I'm asleep. The other thing is like, what's your sleep environment? Like, do you have screens in your bedroom? Do you like scroll through Instagram in your bedroom? Like, do you watch TV or go to sleep to movies, things like that? Are you sleeping in the library on the floor with a bunch of like energy drinks cans around you? Is that really conducive for sleeping? Or should you be on like a mattress with like some pillows to support your neck or your back or anything like that? I mean, something that I have very intentionally done is I turn on blue light filters on all of my devices. So at least I'm not consuming blue light before I go to sleep, which is the main thing that kind of interrupts that sleep cycle. And the other thing is I very intentionally don't do anything else in my room except for sleeping. I mean, occasionally I'll do my morning workout in my room, but if I'm in my room, I'm there to sleep. And that's another thing that my body kind of takes as a cue, like, oh, hey, I'm here, I'm getting in bed, it's time to sleep. That's the thing that I do in here. And the environment really helps with that. Anyone that's kind of studied substance use too, if you think about how tolerance develops and how it is kind of environmental, it's kind of the same thing. Your body really does respond to your environment, whether you're conscious of that or not. And the last thing I have on here is what habits are maybe getting in the way of good sleep? And how do you talk to yourself when you're trying to sleep? Another big thing is like thinking about accumulating positive experiences. They had a note on there about how you shouldn't kind of beat yourself up with like, hey, maybe I don't deserve this, or I'm going to start thinking about when it ends. The other thing I notice for folks who sometimes struggle with insomnia, for example, is that like, and I can totally relate to this, but like around like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you're starting to watch the clock and you will not stop watching it. Sometimes if you give yourself permission to just kind of lay there and rest instead of constantly asking yourself when you're going to go to sleep, that will change how relaxed you feel. I imagine it's not very easy to stay relaxed if you're constantly like, oh my gosh, why am I not asleep? What is wrong with me? What is going on? Maybe responding to what your needs are and practicing that relaxation in that moment instead, and noticing where your body's feeling. So some quick tips for better sleep hygiene. Stick to a schedule, establish a bedtime routine, don't eat or drink a lot before bed. Sometimes if you're super uncomfortable and full feeling, you won't be able to sleep as well. Avoiding caffeine and nicotine, particularly close to bedtime. Exercise is great just for like tiring you out during your day, and it kind of regulates your body a little bit, and then your body like has to make up for that and rebuild energy and things like that. Keeping your room cool is actually also a really good tip. Sleeping primarily at night. That is with the caveat, of course, of like if you don't work swing or work at nights or anything like that. If you have to work during the night, of course, you're going to have to sleep during the day. But I think the main thing about that is sleeping according to your schedule. So not messing that up too much, making sure that you're getting sleep at regular intervals. Keeping it dark and quiet, not using screens in bed, Using your bed only for sleep, so not setting up with your laptop and doing work or school work in your bed. Taking a hot shower or a bath, that's supposed to say bath, before bed. Not relying on sleeping pills. And actually what my undergrad professor once told me in my drug and alcohol class was that sleeping pills actually don't put you to sleep. They just make you unconscious. So especially if your body's developed a dependency on these sleeping pills, like it can't go to sleep without them, I might check in with a doctor about how much you're using those and just seeing like how much it's really working and doing the thing you're wanting it to do. Again, we are not medical doctors, so I cannot advise you on the sleeping pills. And if they are getting used too much, I have heard that that will interrupt your natural sleep cycle anyway. And that last point on here is don't catastrophize. So again, if you find yourself like kind of up at 3:41, that image in the corner of like your hands on your face, just kind of let yourself give permission to just kind of lay there and experience restfulness. Because even if you're just kind of mindfully breathing, that will put you in a more restful state and maybe increase your chances of falling asleep than sitting there kind of mentally berating yourself.
Awesome. And the final E in please is get exercise, which we've kind of already sort of started hinting at this. I'm sure you weren't surprised. This is the final one. When Caitlin was actually talking about food and starting small, this really reminded me again of exercise. Is when we think of exercise, some people imagine it as, going for a 5-mile run, whatever it might be. That sounds absolutely terrible to me. I would never want to do a 5-mile run ever. But there's definitely people out there where like that's their jam. So like that's great. But whatever it is for you, thinking about movement, whatever type of movement works for you and your lifestyle and your body, because health at every size, you can do something to sort of help move your body and your joints and whatever it is, and that's going to work for you. So keep that in mind when we're talking about this. But what is it that will help you get up and move in some way, whatever way you are physically able? It could be a variety of different things. And figuring out what that is for you is really important. But it also will help take care of your body in the long run because you will have, sort of stamina, whatever it might be. But just thinking about what is it that you can incorporate into your day that is going to work for you. So obviously we have pictures of people running, sports ball, doing yoga at your desk. We have people at the gym. Obviously with COVID times, being mindful of whatever that is for you and safety precautions. But what is it that you can do to just get up and move? Going for a walk, doing a chair. Even when you're sitting in a chair, I found some really cool YouTube videos of workouts you can do in from a sitting position. Just whatever makes sense for your ability and what you would like to do and want to do is important to figure out.
All right, so our at-home practice this week is you are going to practice each of our ABC Please skills. So every day of the next week, I want you to engage in or notice one pleasant activity that you did. The key there with noticing is really just, I'm pointing out that if you don't remember to actively make something in your day a pleasant activity, think back on the rest of your day at night. Like when you finished your day and you're like, oh, did I do something that was enjoyable? It can be something as small as blowing bubbles to as big as like finishing a major assignment, like whatever it is you've got going for you. For B, we want you to list 2 ways that you can practice building mastery this week, whether you have a specific goal already that's kind of relevant or whether you want to set one for yourself. And to practice C this week, we want you to identify anything coming up this week that you anticipate as maybe being stressful in whatever way that might be, and come up with some ideas about how you can cope ahead. Or come up with some ideas of how you can cope in the moment if that thing does not go in the way you want it to. For the other component of this, we want you to check off 2 please skills, or really one of the 5 please skills that's included in that 6-letter acronym, to practice during the week. And then afterwards, describe, use your mindfulness skills, specifically what you did and how it made you feel. We do
Awesome.
not,
So
yeah.
So we do not currently have anyone joining us live. As always, if you are watching the recording of this, you can join us next time to answer any questions live, or reach out to Youth Eastside Services if you have any more questions about DBT or anything that we can do to support you. But we are just going to keep moving forward and wrap it up for this evening. If you would like to reach out to us, again, we are not currently offering services at this moment in time, but you can always check our website or give us a call to see when we'll be opening our doors again. You can follow us on social media at all the various platforms of your choosing. And if you need to reach out to someone else, you can call the King County Crisis Line listed there on the screen. If it's not necessarily a 911 emergency, but you do need to reach out to somebody and need support, again, you can also do the crisis text line as well. Or if you are a teen and would like to talk to another teen, Teen Link is available for you as well. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And this has been episode 11.